Hello everybody, this is Berlinologist. I thought I'd do another video. It's nice to get a comment from people, so I haven't had that many, but there was this one comment left by, I believe, an Italian who said he wanted some pictures of a particular person from the Christian F group. There was a crowd of people that were all engaged in that particular story, and I just to mention it, I haven't been able to get that particular photograph. Maybe there might be someone who's got a photo of him out in on the internet somewhere, but I haven't got it in any of my books. So anyway, this video is dedicated to him, and also I'm wondering where Stick is. I haven't heard from Stick for a while, so that would be nice to actually get some contact from Stick. But this is a video about Christian F, or Cristiana Felcherino. I've got this album here, and this album I bought specifically for the picture cover, because the picture cover, what it demonstrates is like one of those housing estates with these great big high-rise blocks of flats. And because this picture reminds me of Großstadt. Großstadt is where Christiana F came from. She moved from there. Beg your pardon. She moved from Hamburg to Berlin to Großstadt, which is in Neukölln, which is a district of Berlin close to the Berlin Wall, as it was then in the early 70s. The chap Gropius is a person. He's the architect that designed that particular housing estate. He was known for the Bauhaus movement in the early 20s, so he made a name for himself. But I'm wondering, because he had his name on this particular estate, and what this estate eventually turned out, maybe he feels now a little bit uncomfortable having his name attached to this particular estate. Because it wasn't just in Berlin. I mean, it was in Glasgow, it was in Birmingham, it was in London, other cities where they were making these estates, these high-rise blocks of flats, in the hope that people on the lower rung of society could move into and have some kind of comfort, and also for the fact that a lot of immigrants, especially the Gastarbeiters, known as guest workers, that came from Turkey and Greece and Cyprus, that were invited to Germany to clear up all or to do the menial labour that nobody else wanted to do, and that they were sort of roped in and invited by the governments of the day to come into Germany, and they would sort of move to these estates. And at the bottom here you can see like this kid playing there, and you can see it's all kind of like he's standing in front of a fire and stuff like that. And what this sort of represents to me is like how Großstadt was for children. It wasn't the ideal place for children. They ended up having to sort of make do with what was given to them, like playgrounds and swings and things like that, sand pits and all that kind of thing. But Christiana F didn't have that. She didn't have that opportunity, because everything was keep off the grass, and you can't go here and you can't go there. And there were signs put up everywhere so that children had to sort of make do to create the kind of fun that they wanted to create amongst themselves. So they had difficulties, with the older boys and girls who would ill-treat the younger kids. Say, for example, if they needed to go to the toilet and they wanted to get the lift, they'd have a spoon that was given to them so they can reach the buttons. And a lot of time this spoon was taken off them, so they couldn't reach the buttons, and so they'd oftentimes wet themselves, or they'd have to go in the sandpit, or they'd do it on the stairs or something like that, because they couldn't get onto their floor in order to be able to use the toilet when they needed to. So it was quite grim. in Hamburg, they didn't have this, they didn't have this problem, because where they lived, they had lots of space, they had a lot of opportunity to play. And this is something that Christiane F. was able to articulate very well, because, she was 15 at the time, so obviously her memory of her childhood is really fresh in her mind, so she could actually explain a lot of this. And if any child psychologist would read her book, they would clearly understand what she's trying to say, what she's trying to communicate, because it was so difficult for her to grow up in that environment, in that the environment that she grew up in. The other thing was she grew up in an alcoholic and dysfunctional family. Now, I've got a book here. It says Adult Children for Alcoholics, Dysfunctional Families, and I don't know if you can see it there, but it's faded out a little bit, but you can see there it says that. And this is the red book that's given to those that go to ACA. So ACA stands for, I'll repeat it again, Adult Children for Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And this thick book here is for those that want to get into what it is like to be able to recover from growing up in an alcoholic dysfunctional family. In Christiane F's case, she grew up with a father who was clearly an alcoholic, and all he cared about is his drinking with his mates and polishing his Porsche. And because of that, one of the situations that he found himself in was him moving to a new place, a place that wasn't perhaps ideal for himself and for his family, and because they were wanting to set up a marriage bureau, and that all fell through. So he was out of work, and he clearly grew frustrated, and he took it out on his wife and his two daughters. And if a man who beats up his daughters because of the slightest thing that he gets upset by, either because they didn't tidy up their room, they left their dolls out on the floor, there was they may have wet themselves, because they couldn't get into the flat when they needed to use the toilet, or one of the pets died. It was a guinea pig. I think it was a guinea pig. It died, or it escaped, and they couldn't find it, and he hated the pet anyway, so he beats up his kids. It was grim, and his wife didn't really intervene, and when she did, he would take it out on Christiane F's mother, and it got so bad that in the bathroom, what they had was a lot of the clothing in the bathtub, and they leave it soaking there, and he would then got Christiane F's mother and put her head inside the bathtub, and that was just too much for her, because after that episode, she got a coat, she told the children to get dressed, and they stayed around at a friend's house, and that effectively was the beginning of the end of the marriage, because at that point then it was never the same, because of that episode. So what occurred was, even though they were living together, they were effectively separated, but they were staying in the same flat until the divorce came through, and then he moved out, and then eventually Christiane F's sister moved in with their father because he said he was lonely. And I recognise a lot of this because I'd read Christiane F's book, and also because of this book as well. So there's a lot of information, and you get a deeper understanding of what it is to grow up in an alcoholic and dysfunctional family. And clearly Christiane F's family was dysfunctional. So when she was growing up, she was about 12 at this point, and that's when she was hanging out with a group of other kids around the same age, or they might be slightly older, and she had her close friend called Kezzy, and they were really close, and she was like more developed, you know, in her chest size, so she would attract those sort of boys that, you know, would be interested in her. So, and Christiana was able to go and mix with that crowd, and that's when they were starting to smoke hashish, and to cut a long story short, I want to explain all the details, but it was through that, you know, that she would start drinking alcohol, and then she would start taking pills, then she would take LSD, and then there were other pills that she would take, and this it's sort of like there was a step-by-step stage in how she was sort of getting used to being into taking all sorts of drugs, because what was happening was her mother had a new boyfriend, and she was paying more attention to her boyfriend than she was to her daughter, and Christiana wasn't getting the love from her mother that she or any child has a right to have, and therefore she would go outside of her home, and she would hang around with other people in order to be accepted in the crowd, because her emotional needs that she had every right to have from her mother, she would receive from being in these group of people. And to be part of that crowd, you know, you would end up taking the kind of drugs that they were taking. So it started off with smoking pot and drinking alcohol, you know, cheap plonk as she called it, and then taking various pills, and then taking LSD and having trips, all at the age of 12, 13. So I've got, let's see, so I have, now this isn't an actual picture of Christiane F. This is the actress that played the part of Christiane F. in the movie. But this is a hardback book, and it's going for like £350. But this particular book has great photographs in there. They're very clear, because I've got various copies of the books. I've got a paperback copy, most of them paperback. You know, I've even got Zoo Station, which is a retranslation from the first book. It's nowhere near the first book. The quality of the translation is nowhere near. It's kind of ironed out. You know, it's a bit PG rated, you know, or rated 13. You know, it doesn't have the impact that the first translation has, unfortunately. This is a French copy, but what's so unique about this book, and of course I can't speak French, are the photographs. Now, one of the viewers that viewed my trailer on Christiane F. said, could he get some more pictures of some of the people that Christiane F. hung out with. And unfortunately, because I know in his book he doesn't have any of those pictures, but I will show all the pictures that are available from this book, because the quality of the pictures are so much better than any of the other books that I've got here. So let's see. This one, so here are all the characters. Now this one I've already shown. That's Dead Left there. That was her boyfriend, and he's kind of like, because he's a rent boy there. You know, he's what they call renting. So he's looking for clients. And here's some of the other characters. Can you see them there? Now, when we might re-upload these to get edits, but my mate John, at the moment, he's really busy working. That's Babsy. Unfortunately, she passed away. Babsy there, that girl there, she passed away sadly. And as a lot of these have. And this was a note that she she wrote down. That's all her writing there. And this is the Sound. This is where they all hung out. Now, the Sound is a club on the Kurfürstenstraße. I think it's called the Kurfürstenstraße or Kurfürsten Street, where a lot of people went, and they all got hooked on heroin when they went to this. This club closed in 1988, and now it's I think it's an old folks home. The location is an old folks home where the Sound used to be. Oh, look at that photo there. I mean, that looks really grim. It looks really grim. That one. That toilet is no longer there. But if you see that toilet there, it says Damen, ladies. That's gone. I mean, the location obviously is still there because somebody actually went there and they filmed it and they put it on their YouTube channel. But it's that toilet has now disappeared. Now this is a drug den. Look at that. I mean, it looks really, really grim. It's all DOS in there. Because they were selling everything, you know, in order for them to get their next fix. Now, I don't know if this is an actual person has died. They took a photo. I'm not sure if that's an actual dead person there. Sort of lying down by the toilet. This is Zoo Station. U2 wrote a song called Zoo Station. That's Zoo Station. But it's all... Now, if you were to go there now, it's all gentrified. It won't look as grim as what it looks in that photograph. This is a bust, where the police bust looking for people that have got drugs on them, and they're busting them. And that's Dead Lev in prison. So this story is a real, you know, I mean, if you can find a book you want the Suzanne Flattauer translation, that's the book that you want to get. But unfortunately, it's been long deleted, and as a result, it's going to cost a little bit. So if you want a readable copy, chances are you'll probably pay 20 quid for it. If you can pay less than that and you've got a good copy, then you've done really well. But 20 quid for a readable copy, meaning that, you know, there isn't any pages missing, you know, nobody's highlighted it or written in the margins or underlined anything, so it isn't annotated, and you get it for under 20 quid, you've done really well. So the other thing that's so unique is David Bowie was in Berlin at the time, and he was recording his Berlin trilogy. Now, the Berlin trilogy is a little bit of a myth, because his albums that he recorded was Low, Heroes, and Lodger. Now, Low was recorded in France. It was not recorded in Berlin. Heroes was. This is a copy of Heroes. I haven't opened up this. It's still sealed. This copy is still sealed. I haven't opened it up yet. But this album was actually recorded in Berlin. However, it was mixed in Switzerland. They mixed it in Switzerland. But all the songs were written and recorded in Berlin. Now, when David Bowie, it's back a bit. When David Bowie writes, he sort of just gets in the studio, and then they would sort of record. They sort of make things up, almost as they go along. You know, they make tracks up. And David said it only took about half an hour before they had a track, and then all of a sudden he would write the lyrics there on the spot. And you know, like Robert Fripp, for example, was invited to come to Berlin. He was there for a day, and he recorded that famous guitar sound on Heroes, on that song Heroes. He was there for a day, recorded it, and then he went again. So everything was done really, really quickly, and I think that and it obviously captures the time. It captures what Berlin was like, because, as we know, in the 70s Berlin was walled off, and a lot of people that went to Berlin, like teenagers, young people that went to Berlin. One of the reasons they went to Berlin was to avoid the draft, so they wouldn't have to be conscripted to go into the army. So to avoid that, they would go to Berlin, and they would just live off of the benefits. So you had a lot of people, kind of everyone from like musicians, artists, painters, bohemian types. They'd live in a sort of squatter town in Kreuzberg, and they'd go to sort of clubs, or they would become sort of create their own cafes, bars, or or they DJ, in a warehouse somewhere, so they don't have to pay any rent, and health and safety, well, you can forget that, So it's a city that attracts those types of people in Berlin. That anybody that has that kind of that believes in that kind of culture, where you sort of you do it yourself kind of thing, you could move to Berlin, find a cheap place. Well, maybe it's not so cheap now, but certainly back in those days it was. Or a place that you didn't have to pay any rent, which is effectively a squat. And before you know it, you find you go to the right places, you meet the right people, and bang, you could set yourself up in one way or another, and make a living for yourself, so you can survive out in Berlin. And a lot of people did that in the 70s and the 80s. So that's David Bowie. I wanted to find out a bit more about David Bowie, and I bought this book, Bowie in Berlin. And as good as this book is, because it really is good, because I've read it, I mean, it's fantastic, but it talks more about the music that he recorded in Berlin, and also what he recorded in France and what he recorded in Switzerland, what he called the Berlin Trilogy. But really, the album that he recorded was Heroes. That's the album, that one here, this one here, that's the one he actually recorded at Hansa Studios. I couldn't really find out as much as I wanted to about what David Bowie was doing in Berlin, other than recording his music. Where did he hang out with? Who did he see? What was the kind of bars and cafes and clubs that he went to? I really don't know. That's like that's the side of Bowie that I don't really know much about, and I was really hoping that I'd find it in this book. I've also got another documentary, sort of like 1976 to 1979, ein Dokumentarfilm, Bowie in Berlin. But really, it sort of talks about, it's got people like talking heads. They're talking about David Bowie's music, and it doesn't really give me an insight as to what David Bowie was doing in Berlin, other than recording his music. So we get that side of it, but we don't get the other side of Bowie. So, and there he is with Iggy Pop, and that photo isn't even taken in Berlin. So it's worth noting that. This is something else I got, Hauptstrasse. This is a tribute to David Bowie, but it's really like one of these kind of flick through dip books. You sort of just flick through it, and there's some photographs and art and stuff like that. And other to a fan, it perhaps isn't really that interesting. However, having said that, there is a photo that I want to show you. And this is the entrance to his apartment. So you see that? Then when he goes up the stairs, and on the right hand side that's the entrance to his apartment. And he went to Berlin because he wanted to get off the cocaine that he was taking. He was taking a lot of cocaine at the time. So he and Iggy wanted to get off the drug scene, and they moved to Berlin to do it. Whereas Christiane F was there at the same time getting on the drugs. Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy. But why I mentioned David Bowie is because Christiane F was a big fan. She loved David Bowie. And it's such an important part of the story, because if you haven't seen the film, and I highly recommend that you do, you will see there is a scene in it where she gets triggered. And the song is It's Too Late. The song is Too Late. And it's not on this album, Heroes. And it's not on the soundtrack, Wir Kinder von Bahnhof Zoo. It's not on that either. And it's such an important part of the story, because Christiane F., when she started to take heroin, she knew the date when she took it. She knew the date. And it was as a result of her going to a David Bowie concert. When she went to a David Bowie concert, she was enjoying the concert until he played that song, It's Too Late. That song was the trigger for her to start taking heroin. And the first time she took it up for her nose, so she snorted it. And then the second time she took it, it was injected. Now here, there it is. She's about to take heroin for the first time, inject heroin for the first time. I like the, well, I say I like, I mean, but this, the picture is a description, is very descriptive. If you look at that picture, it's very descriptive, because she's in the public toilet there to take the heroin. Now, I won't say any more than that, because if I say too much, you know, it might spoil the film. You know, it's like spoilers. It might spoil the film. And there is a character in the film called Corpse. They call him Corpse, and he looks like that. Look at that. In the film, what's she doing? Because she was a good scrounger. She knew how to scrounge for money. So she was able to get enough money to be able to get the heroin, because Corpse was going cold turkey. He was like, and he's only 16. He's 16. He was going cold turkey, and he was completely losing it. You know, they called him Corpse because it was almost like he was like a zombie almost. You know, sort of the Walking Dead. And you got to think a lot of this crowd sort of passed away. Let's see. This one here. So you think, well, why have I got all these copies of the same film? It's basically because you're looking for better prints of the film, because the different distributors will have different prints of the film. So what you're looking for is the best quality print. And I mean, you know, you've got your Blu-rays and your 4Ks, and I haven't got Blu-ray or 4K of this. But this is something I want to show you, because you can see all the red. And you're thinking, well, what is that? Why? What signifies? You know, what is the importance of having like this red cover? Is because that's what they see when they go cold turkey. When they go cold turkey, they start seeing red. And that's what she described to her boyfriend, Detlef, when he went cold turkey. And hence, you've got the red there. And this one has got the picture of the actress that actually played the part. Now, what's so unique about this is when they were making the film was made a guerrilla style. So you had the cameraman, the sound man, and the director who was holding the lights. And because the characters hadn't acted before, the director had to explain what he wanted them to do. So it wasn't like hitting their mark, you know, like an actor would know what to do, you know, on a set. He would have to sort of create the scene and explain it in such a way that they understood what they needed to do in front of the camera. In one of my other videos, I mentioned about Zoo Station and not going into Zoo Station at the time, because I said I had a feeling about, you know, it was a bit eerie going into Zoo Station. Well, they couldn't film in Zoo Station either. They could do outside because funny enough, because Berlin was divided between East and West, the East Germans had authority to what could be, whether it was filmed or not. So they would have to go to the East German authorities to get the permission to be able to film inside Zoo Station. And of course they didn't get it. I mean, there's a long story. It gets a bit more complicated, so I won't explain it all. But what I will say is they tried to do it by having the cameraman hidden in, sitting in a wheelchair, and he would try and film it, with the hidden camera as they were going through Zoo Station, to do a scene. And it's at that point where some of the scene gets blurred. It actually gets blurred because of the circumstances in which they had to film it. But this really gives like a, where it captures it. There was another scene where she has to be on the Kurfürstenstraße. Kurfürstenstraße is Kurfürsten Street. It's an actual street, but it's a pickup. It's what they call the Babystrich. Babystrich is the baby strip. It's all those young girls that were prostituting themselves on the street, because it's quite free to be a prostitute out in Berlin. And they were telling her where to, how to stand and where to stand. And as they were filming it, a car came up and stopped by her, and she was about to get in the car, and they had to run. The director, the cameraman, and the sound man were running up to to tell her, no, don't get into the car, because that's a John, it's a proper pickup. So that's how real it was. I mean, it's so real that at all the locations that they went to, where they filmed everything, it was the actual locations where Christiane F. went to, and all the crowd went to when they were doing, part of the scene, and how they were getting their drugs and how they were earning their money in order to pay for it. So it was as real as you possibly can get. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but there was another film that was made before Christiane F. that was in some way based on Christiane F.'s story. And this is called Die Schulmädchen von Treffpunkt Zoo, which means die. I know it's spelled D-I-E, which is die, but in German it's spelled die. Die means the. So the Schulmädchen means school children, von Treffpunkt, meeting place, zoo, or Zoo Station. And this was shot in 1979. I know this because it actually says it, and not only that, as you watch the film, you actually see a poster, and you see 1979, and it's outside of Zoo Station. And this here is Zoo Station, also part of Zoo Station, and I actually went there. And that is like a road underneath the Zoo Station sort of thing. And I remember when I was in Berlin, I got picked up by this woman who wanted me to join Scientology. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but eventually I got the I saw, right, I get it now, because she took me to their church, and I recognised that cross that they have with those four points. Anyway, it's another story. I'm sure I've mentioned it in one of my other videos. But this came out first before Christiane F. did. But nobody talks about this movie. And in fact, a lot of the story is completely different to the truth of what actually occurred in the book Christiane F. Whereas this one stays true to the book. However, having said all that I've said, a lot of what I've explained is not a spoiler. It's not, because it's at the beginning of the book, and in the film they cut a lot of that out. A lot of that what I explained is not in the film at all, apart from where she gets triggered, where that kind of sort of starts the whole story, and how she delved into taking heroin. After the book, magazine articles in Der Stern, and newspaper columns and headlines, and she became a kind of a celebrity or a minor celebrity, and she was very much. She went out with Alexander Hacke, who was in a band called Einstürzen den Neubauten. It's a well-known band even to this day, and one of the things they're known for is the industrial sound. They're known for getting, banging car engines and machines and, clanking sounds with these, metal pipes and all of that. And she went out with the bass player. Well, this is an album. This is not an album. Beg your pardon. This is a 12-inch that she made. I believe this came out in 1982, and that's her there. And I mean, she was a good-looking girl. I mean, she was like, wow, that's really, really attractive. The track's called Gesundheit, which means bless you. So if you sneeze, bless you. That is Gesundheit. And there's a track on here called Heimweh, which means homesick. Homesick. And there's different mixes of this. And it's got her saying vocals and guitar. Now, I don't know if she actually played guitar or they're just sort of putting that on there to sort of make her out to be this great musician. And in there, here, it's got a bit of a write-up as to what she did, because they wanted to ask the actress, the director wanted the actress who played the character of Christiane F. to go out to Los Angeles to promote the film, but the father said no. So he eventually asked Christiane F. if she would accompany him, and she said yes. So she did. And during the course of them promoting, they told her to stay clean, not to take any drugs. But she just didn't listen to what they were saying, so she ended up taking drugs while she was there. And what they wanted to do was to record a song. And this is the song, and it was all off the cuff, it was suggested, oh, let's record a song, let's go into a recording studio, we'll get a couple of musicians together and we'll do it. And it was like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. And it wasn't a deep discussion. They didn't take a week or a month to think about what they're going to do and have a song and how they're going to do it. It was like, yeah, okay, we'll go and record it. And this is the song. Now, it doesn't sound like, she's any kind of great singer or anything like that. And this, however, is not original. This is record store day. It's, when with the resurgence of vinyl, I think once a year they have record store day where they will print these limited edition vinyls of particular artists. It might be Bill Evans, who was a great jazz pianist, or it might be Miles Davis, from a long lost recording, a live recording that he did in Switzerland or in Paris or wherever. Or it could be, demo tapes by the Smiths or the Jam or something like that. And in this case, it was this Christiane F. And when I saw this, I said, oh, I've got to get it. And if you look, you will see you've got the black, the red, and the yellow. And if anybody would recognise it, that is the German flag. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I saw it myself. I thought, oh my God, yeah, it's the German flag. And that's the back of the cover. So, yeah, I mean, why I mention this is pretty much because she was one of the first reality TV stars. She was a celebrity as a result of her book and the film and the interviews that she gave. She sort of became a kind of a star, and consequently she had these opportunities to appear in films. She's done a couple of films. She's made a couple of records, and she got to hang out with other sort of like-minded people. And she was in a club called Risiko, and I recognised it from the 80s, because there's a guy called Mike Reeder who knew a lot of these people, and anytime there was an English camera crew that were invited to go to Berlin to do some filming or to film the scene, the Berlin scene as it was at the time, they would always look for Mike Reeder because he knew the places to go and the people to see. And Christiane F. was there. And because her English wasn't that good, you know, they spoke mostly German. And it was at that point that I actually recognised that she was a kind of like a minor kind of celeb, like a reality TV star like Jade Goody was, perhaps. Maybe not to the heights of Jade Goody, but somewhere in between. And she was one of the first, without having, you know, without anybody calling her a reality TV star, I would say she was one of the first reality stars. So I've pretty much covered as much as I want to cover on the whole Christiane F. story. I think it's still fascinating. I think there is a lot to tell, but I don't want to go too much into the film because that might spoil it for you. But I highly recommend the film. It's not the easiest film to watch. There are some really graphic scenes. A lot of it is kind of shot in that kind of documentary style, so it has that realism to it. So it might not be the easiest film to watch, but it's a really good film, especially in the use of non-actors playing the part of these particular characters. So yeah, I pretty much will conclude it there, and we might re-upload this video. We'll see how it turns out. If we feel we want to shoot it again, we might do that, and we'll have a lot of edits and inserts. As you know, sort of like some of the photographs that I showed you for that gentleman from Italy who mentioned it, who said he wanted to see some of the pictures because he couldn't, he doesn't have access to any of them. So I hope in some way that I've fulfilled his curiosity. So auf Wiedersehen.